Welcome back to Transforming Lives with Prophetess Rein Wallace. I am your host, Prophetess Rein, and I am so glad that you joined me for another Say Something Saturday. This is one of my favorite segments. For those of you who are new to the channel, Say Something Saturdays is a part of a global campaign to transform our traumas. We are moving from a place of victim to victory. And this is a global campaign that is in the US, that is in Africa, and is in Europe. And you can join me if you are a leader watching me. You can inbox me to find out how you can be a part of this global campaign. Or if you have a story that you would like to share, we would love to hear from you. You can inbox me at transformwithrein@gmail.com. We'll mention that at the end of this broadcast, and we'll put links below so that you will know how to get in touch with us. Say Something Saturdays is one of my favorite segments. It is near and dear to my heart because we deal with the stuff that the enemy doesn't want us to deal with. We deal with the stuff that we've been sitting on, that we've been carrying, those traumas, those things that are difficult for us to talk about. We also have Authentic Worship Mondays, if you're new to this station, where we talk about the things that we do in our worship practices, why we do those things, why we say certain things. We dissect the principles of worship to help you understand them so you can become what? An authentic worshiper. On Wednesdays, we do Help Me Stand, which is another segment that is designed to talk about process, to deal with our issues so that we can stand and walk this faith life out appropriately. Today, I'm really excited to share with you again as a part of this campaign, and I want to deal with fear of the truth. Fear of the truth. Fear of the truth. Now, if you've read any of my books, such as I'm Not Garbage or Redemption is Real, then you know my testimony. I talk in great detail about the traumas that I have experienced in my life, starting from childhood prostitution to being sexually abused by my stepfather and other family friends. I talk about being raped when I was 14, but I talk about it from a place of being healed. I talk about it from a place of being transformed, and we launched this so that we could get you there too. But I remember when I was in the process of transformation, the Lord initiating for me to write a book. And it was one of the things that I really didn't want to do because, one, I really didn't want to relive what I had already been through. Now, as Christians, even as adults, period, even as children, we learn the art of suppression. Things that we don't want to talk about, things that we don't want to deal with, what do? We suppress it. And it was easier for me to suppress it than it was to talk about it, especially in the detail that I felt compelled to write. So if you don't have that book, I encourage you to get it. We will post a link below to make sure that you have access to that. But talking about it, reliving it, I found that there was just an ultimate fear of the truth. There was a fear of facing the truth. What am I saying? Sometimes, in spite of abuse, we love people so hard that even when we are the abused, we will go out of our way to protect the abuser. And we don't often understand how that is affecting us. We don't often understand that we don't have to be martyrs and that we are actually under no obligation to protect those that have abused us. Now, when God told me to write a book, I'm not going to lie. I thought, my mother's still alive. I really don't know that I want to write this book. Or I don't, because I'm talking a lot about her mom and what her mom did to me and how is she going to feel, if she hears these things. And she's made really clear that it's difficult for her to talk about this stuff. And God, I don't want to, I have siblings that are still alive. And he's my stepfather, but this is their biological father. And I loved him like a father. And I just, I love my aunts and uncles and cousins. And, I just had all these excuses and these issues. And one of the things that the Holy Spirit said to me is, as long as you are busy trying to protect everyone else, how are you ever going to become an effective parent? How are you ever going to become an effective coworker? How are you ever going to become an effective wife? In fact, forget all of that. How are you ever going to live in peace if you don't deal with it? You might not like the method that I'm telling you to go in order to heal. But if you obey me, if you do what I said, there's healing on the other side. And you've got to want the healing more than you are nursing the pain. And I was nursing the pain. There are parts in me that I will admit. Sometimes we get comfortable being a victim. Why? Because it affords us attention. People feel sorry for us. So we give them just enough information, right, to love on us. because what I didn't get in childhood, the "you're specials" and, the "I love yous" and the "I'm proud of yous," sometimes we find other ways to get that appreciation, even through our sob stories, even through our sad situations. And then the other fear of facing the truth is I knew that I would be compelled to forgive. And I wasn't ready to forgive. I didn't think they deserved forgiveness. In fact, I thought that all of them could go straight to Hades in a handbasket, and I will escort you there. I did not want them to receive God. I didn't want to forgive them. I felt that was unfair. You spent a lot of time abusing me, and now you get to be delivered and go off and love the Lord and ride off into the sunset as if nothing ever happened. And the Lord said, this is exactly why I want you to write. Because there are so many people who feel like you feel, who are sitting on their deliverance, who are silently suffering. I am looking down at the church and I'm seeing wounded worshipers. The Lord said to me, 4 out of 5, and this is before I even looked at the statistics, 4 out of 5 women have been sexually abused. And he said to me, if you look around at all of the church members that you are parading for and wearing a mask for, many of them have been through what you've been through. And I need one of y'all to be bold enough to talk about it so all 5 of you can be delivered. And I didn't necessarily want to be the champion of that. I didn't necessarily, want to participate. But I understood that there was a greater purpose for my life. I understood that Romans 8:28 in that moment as God was speaking to me was very real. That he will take all of the bad and turn it for good, not just mine, but for the good of those that I would preach to later, for the good of those that I would minister to when I became a prophet. I didn't necessarily see the bigger picture. I just knew that the assignment seemed very intense. And a lot of it is because I was afraid of the forgiveness that I would have to initiate. I was afraid of telling the truth. What are people going to think about my family? What are people going to say? What questions are they going to ask of my mother? And it was hard for me when I prayed about that. The one thing the Lord did say is he would cover my family, and he did. But it was hard for me to hear God say, you don't need to worry about that. Get over it. It's about you healing. And that felt very selfish to me, because I was trying to be a superhero. I felt like, you know what? I've come through it. I made it out. It's all good. I'll talk to those that you want me to talk to privately. We don't necessarily have to go this route. I wanted to be hidden and I wanted to be closeted, but that was not the purpose for my life. And God cared enough about you who are listening to me and many of those that I've had to minister to make sure that I heal so that I could become. And so the fear of what people would think, the fear of facing the truth, I had to get over. And that was my first fear. What are people going to think? What are they going to think about my family? The other fear, as I briefly mentioned, is reliving it. What if I don't make it out? What if going back in my mind and reviewing a lot of these things causes me to sink into a deeper place, and then I become even more unable to be the woman that I really truly want to be? And so that fear of facing truth can be paralyzing. We won't talk, we won't write, we won't do those things that we feel that God is calling us to do in relationship to our traumas, because as we said in last segment, people are going to ask, well, why didn't you tell? What's the opinion? Listen, we've got to deal with the fear. The word of the Lord says, God doesn't give us a spirit of fear, but a power of love and of a sound mind, which is self-control. God will never lead you in a place of talking about what you've been through without providing for you in the process, which means God is going to cover you emotionally. God is going to cover your family. And we're talking about assignment. We're not talking about in bitterness. Because remember, we don't share from a place of bitterness. We don't share to get even. We're talking about transforming trauma, which means we share from a healed place. All right? We share from a place of being delivered and looking back so that others can be healed. But when God gives us an assignment, or when we start feeling compelled to share, we feel that paralyzing fear of, I don't know that I want to say something. I don't know that I really want to talk about this. I don't know that I really want to let this out because I'm not sure what the other side is going to be. That's the fear that we've got to take to God. This is where building our relationship with God is helpful to us, because as our chains get broken, we ought to want to see those chains broken off of someone else. And the fear of what people will think, the fear of failure, the fear of falling back into depression, all of that is a trick of the enemy to keep us from the liberation that belongs to us. And I had to get to a place where even when I was being questioned by some of my siblings, I had to say, I don't care what you think. Because you know what? You didn't live this. I love you. And yes, I want to protect you, but this is about me. And I need you to show up for me. I need you to be here for me. And I need you to not evoke more fear on me so that I shut down and I suppress. Maybe suppression is comfortable for you, but it's not working for me. Not only because God is driving me to a different place, but because I've seen what the suppression is doing to me emotionally. I've seen what the suppression is doing to me mentally, and I don't want to live that way anymore. And so I get that you may have your concerns. I understand. But this has to come first. And essentially what you're saying to me is, I don't care if you die. I need you to keep these secrets because I don't want us to look bad. And so there were a few, when I said it that way, it was like, okay, yeah, she got to do this. There is a legitimate fear that we will face when it comes to telling our truth. Whether it's, will anybody believe me? Will they talk about me? Will my peers be upset with me? If God is pushing you to a place of being liberated, and it may not be write a book, it just may be God saying heal. You have got to go to that place at all costs. At all costs. And you know what? Those who walk away will walk away. But you've got to live. You've got to live for you, for the people that you are supposed to minister to, for the people that need your healing in order to lead them into healing. Our healing is never about us. Never just about us, excuse me. It's always got the added benefit of helping others get through it. And so we can't let the fear of our truth, in whatever form that fear comes in, stop us from stepping into the liberty that the enemy doesn't want you to experience. See, the enemy always wants you in a place of being a victim, because as long as you're a victim, God gets no glory. As long as you're in pain, you're not able really to freely embrace God or worship in the way that God desires, and you're not able to really reproduce God's character in the earth. God is a healer. And what better example than those of us God has healed to step out and say, I know he can do it from experience, not just from knowledge, but because this is what he did for me. The enemy will always throw up a threat. And you know what I do? Throw the threat on the altar. Because I came to the revelation that I was not going to be good for myself or anybody else until this was dealt with, fears and all. And if it meant going to counseling, spiritual and natural counseling, if it meant staying on my face, if it meant following the instruction of writing a book, I was determined to get to where God wanted me to be, because he promised me that on the other side was a life that I would never imagine, and he didn't let me down. And I want you to get to that life. I don't want you to stay in a place where you are suppressing what you need to be saying. It's okay to say what you need. It's okay to decide to choose you and to decide to heal. Nobody has been more hurt in the situation than you when you are a victim of trauma. And we don't have to, get buck wild, and we don't have to do wild and crazy things to tell our truth. Again, we want to be led by God. And we want to make sure that as we are speaking our truth, we are doing it in light of love and in light of our own healing, and not because what I found out is people are sick. People who abuse are sick. They're sick. And whether they understood what they were doing to you or not, they were sick. Whether people who should have been protecting you were or weren't, they missed it. But I would rather, instead of pointing the fingers and placing blame, I would rather get to the place of transformation and help somebody else than to play the blame game. You don't have to wrestle with any enemy. I don't care where that enemy shows up. You don't have to wrestle with your brokenness with anybody else. You owe it to you to be free. And so I encourage you to figure out with God, how do I get to the place of saying something? Take my fear. Whatever my fears are about the truth, I give it to you, Lord. And I promise you, he will speak back to you about how to overcome. God always creates the way around the thing we fear the most. Sometimes the way around is head on. But trust me when I tell you, because I'm a living witness, whatever God leads you to say, however God directs you to say it, God always covers, God always protects. So you don't have to fear your truth. God wants you to bring your truth to the light so that every manner of darkness inside here can be exposed to the light and dealt with so that we can be free and then free others. So if you're watching me today and you need prayer or you need support, you can feel free to email us at transformwithrein@gmail.com. I will make sure that I post that below so that you will have access to that. A member of our team will be happy to pray for you. I have a website that you can check out, ReinWallaceMinistriesInternational.com, where you will find a variety of services that we offer to get you to this place. And maybe it'll be you on the other side of a screen encouraging somebody else to say something, because that's what we want. We want you to say something so that we can see the salvation of the Lord. I love you all. Until next Saturday, I'll see you then.